Hello BookTube, it's Roz and I'm here on a very wet and miserable December Sunday in Brighton with kind of a bookish question for you. And that is whether you are a monogamous or a polygamous reader. Now, the reason I'm asking this question is because it's kind of been in my head all week. Because this time last weekend, I found myself with 5 different books all on the go at the same time. And that for me is really exceptional to have 5 things. Now, I know there are readers out there, booktubers, who are happy to have a dozen books on the go at once. I think Sean the Book Maniac will have maybe 16. He does describe himself as a book slut, to be fair. But, he can juggle all of those and that works for him, and he might finish 4 in 1 week and he'll start another 4, along with all the other things that go on. Okay, now, but I don't, as a rule, and how did I end up with 5 on the go this week, and why does that not work for me? And yeah, that's kind of this is the question that's been going around in my head. So, pre-booktube, I was definitely what I would describe as a serial monogamist in terms of reading. So I would start a book, read it all cover to cover, finish it, put it down, on to the next book. Yeah? I might have like a little kind of extramarital affair with a collection of poetry, maybe partway through a long book. But yeah, essentially one at a time. I might also have, it's one of those sort of non-fictiony things that you don't need to read cover to cover or from start to finish or all at once, lurking in the bathroom or by the sofa, and friends with benefits, we might describe that one. But essentially my relationship would be with one book at a time. Then I got embroiled in BookTube, and the siren voices reached out to me and said, "Oh, there's this read along. Oh, there's this group read. Oh, you could buddy read this with me and me." And I get sucked in because I'm easily tempted, and it seems to work for other people. So why not? And I have to say, it is one of the joys of BookTube, some of these things, and I, as an experience, I would warmly recommend them. And one thing I was meaning to say is that if you are someone who comments on BookTube rather than making videos, to just bear in mind that you will always be very, very welcome in joining a group read. It's normal for it to be like a mix of people who have channels and don't, and usually the conversations happen on Voxer, and just say you fancy it, and or say to a booktuber that you follow, oh, you interested in a buddy read, and people are really up for it, and that is a lovely thing that I've found. So, but how did I end up with 5 things on the go? So this December I had 2 kind of buddy ready things in mind to do that I've been planning for a while, and one of those was to read a book by Clarice Lispector. So this is book number 1 of my 5. Now, Lispector is Brazilian, 20th century Brazilian novelist. She was born in the Ukraine, but they emigrated to Brazil, and that's where she lived her life, and she's a famous Brazilian novelist. And I read the first of her books that I read was in 2019, and so I read 1 that year, and then I've read 3 this year. Well, 2, and then the 1 for this December. And she has, in that time, become really one of my favourite writers. And this is another question for you. I have just a few writers in my life that I feel like I want to read every novel that they've written. and Lispector is one. I may even read her short stories, and I'm not really a short story person, but there's something about her that makes me want to do that. If I think of the other authors that I feel the same way about, Jane Austen would be one, and I read all her novels, and now I've read her unfinished novels, and then I'm now on the juvenile, Virginia Woolf. I haven't read all of them yet, but I certainly will. George Eliot's another. Thinking of people that aren't dead classic English women writers. Rohinton Mystery. I haven't yet read all of his, but I know that I will. Orhan Pamuk, the Turkish author. I've read most of his, and I will eventually read all of them, I know. Marilyn Robinson. She's a contemporary author that I've read all her novels, bar the latest one, which I'm going to read in January, I think. So, tell me, who are those authors for you? Do you have authors like that? Anyway, Lispector is the newest one for me that fits that category. Books that are not for the faint-hearted, though, I have to say. And the one I'm reading in December is Near to the Wild Heart. Near to the Wild Heart? Yeah, Near to the Wild Heart, which was her first novel. And it's a kind of like a coming-of-age story, as is appropriate to a book that was published when she was 23. But it is also already, it's got all that sort of very inventive approach to form and a kind of layering of ideas that you get in the later books that I've read. It's therefore like just a perfect book to read in a buddy read situation, because it's one of those books where, well, I would say it's a bit like when you have a new baby. If you haven't had a baby, you won't know what but you'll understand when I explain. So when you have a new baby, particularly first baby, like, you need to have conversations with people about, I don't know, baby poo and what you feed them and whether it's normal that they do this or that. And it's the sort of thing that, like, would be extraordinarily dull to anyone who didn't also have a new baby. So you have to find other people in the same position to talk to about all this stuff that's just banal and ridiculous. Now, there are some authors where it's just brilliant to be able to have someone else that you can do that. I read and I thought, and what did you make of that bit? And oh, I thought I saw this reference there. Or oh, I love these lines. This was just brilliant. And it would be really irritating to anyone who wasn't currently reading the book. So it's great doing a buddy read because you get to do that. And I'm reading this with Alan of Big Hub Books and Classics, and this is the third time I've read a Clarice Lispector with him, so that's become a bit of a habit. It would almost be odd to read one without him now. And this time we're also reading it with Una of Codex Cantina, and that it's a delight. So that was number one, and that was planned. Then my second planned read was to read Paradise Lost, which I actually started in November, and it's with a group of booktubers, both channel people and commenters, as it were, and we're doing one book a week, and there's 12 books in the poem, and it will take us till the end of January, and that is lovely. And again, perfect book for a group read, because it's one of those books where I feel like I ought to have read it, but I haven't, and sometimes I picture I've got like kind of an angel on one side and a devil on the other, and and the angel says, you really should read this book. It's one of the great works of English literature. How can you call yourself a serious reader and you haven't read Milton's Paradise Lost? And on the other side, you've got like the devil saying, you probably won't like it. You probably find it too difficult. Oh, well, it's a classic, so there's always something new to read. Read this new, shiny. Read shiny new thing. Don't worry about it because that's not going away. Okay, so something like a group read makes me do it, and that's a joy. And it's going really well. So that meant I had two things to read in December. Great. Then I met a new booktuber, Tom LA Books, and he popped up only in the last 6 weeks or so, and Tom seduced me into reading Dante's Divine Comedy. How did that happen? Well, Tom is Italian, although he's lived in America for like a big chunk, I don't know, 20 years or something. He has one of the loveliest voices on BookTube. As you could tell, I want everybody to go and subscribe to Tom, please, and maybe join us on the Divine Comedy. he is a real enthusiast for the book. For some reason, we were talking about Dante in the comments, and because I'm reading Paradise Lost, it kind of fits. It kind of goes with it, and he loves Dante and the Divine Comedy. He's got a passion for it, and he's just said, "Oh, I've got this idea." Very brave idea for a brand new book shader. I've got this idea that I think I'm going to make a video for every one of the 100 cantos of the Divine Comedy, and I'm going to do it like one a week or maybe two some weeks. But basically, this is this project is not going to finish till 2022, you know. But and he's 3 down, 97 to go. I have every confidence that Tom will carry on and do all 100 of these. He loves Dante so much, and again, it's one of those things where you've got, like, you know, the angel saying, "Oh, it's an amazing, you know, fundamental text of the European, you know, the Western canon of literature," and you know, Lucifer on the other side saying, "It would probably be too difficult for you, and you know, it's medieval and it's religious and it interests you." Doing it with Tom is going to be a delight, I can tell. One of the joys is that because he's Italian, he helps you get over that the translation problem where you're reading something and he will sort of say, "Oh, well, there's this translation or there's that translation," but the original Italian says, "So I think," oh, such a good thing. Do come and join us, because obviously, you know, we've got 18 months of this to run, so, you know, plenty of time to hop on the Dante's Divine Comedy bus for sure. But there I am, seduced into a third read in December simultaneously. And then temptation creeps along again in the shape of Matthew of Maybury Book Club. Now, Matthew is another of BookTube's great voices. You could just sit and listen to him all night. It's very slow, very measured delivery. And you know, when you're watching him, you get to see his gorgeous little house with the books, and some of the loveliest cats. Basically, his cats were like the cat stars of BookTube for me until Highly Remembered Reads got her kitten. So when he said, "Oh, I think in December I'm going to do a read along of the Brothers Karamazov. Yeah, I'll reread it, make some videos, and you know, hop on, join in, feel free, you know, read, comment, enjoy. 30 pages a day. Well, you know, 30 pages. Anyone can do 30 pages a day. It's no problem, is it? I've always meant to read Brothers Karamazov. So there I am. You know, angel and devil at it again. But, you know, Matthew says jump, and I jumped. Okay, so now I've got 4 things on the go. The Brothers Karamazov, one of the things the devils had been saying about not reading, is because it's like 1,000 pages or something. So it was like, you know, one of those things you never embark on without that extra added impetus. March of the Mammoths is a good time to embark on books like that. But yeah, why not? I thought, oh, there you go. So there I am, having a lovely time with 4 different books. Then I remember, 10th of December, it's my book group, my real live face-to-face book group, and I'm meant to have read The Nickel Boys, and I never skip reading the book. So five, got to read 5th. So last weekend, I basically sat down and read The Nickel Boys from cover to cover, because I knew I just couldn't cope with having, you know, another one on the go. Now, in many ways, that was a good way to read The Nickel Boys, because... Hello, cat. There's a cat meowing in the background if you hear a noise. The Nickel Boys is a very intense book, and it's basically, well, it was almost like it was good to get all the misery out of the way in one go. Do you understand what I mean? Yeah. It's like, it's not a book that you would want to read last thing at night before going to sleep, because it would infiltrate your head in, I mean, I don't know, how would you sleep after reading a bit of that book? It's been one of the books of the year. I expect most of you have already read it. If you haven't, it's set in a Florida reform school, and it's based on the reality of what those schools were like, and one in particular. But it is a novel. It's called from Whitehead. It's now, one thing I would say about it as a book is he does some very, very graphic descriptions of violence. It was the same in his previous book that I read. He's written several, but I've only read two. The previous one was The Underground Railroad. Really graphic descriptions of what is basically torture. And if I were to read that in a novel that was like a thriller or something, I think I would say this is gratuitous. I don't want to read this. It's like kind of misery porn or something. It's like now these are Colson Whitehead is writing a very serious book for a serious purpose, and I know why he wants to make those descriptions so graphic. But I think it's an interesting question. Where do you draw your line with that? Where I'm generally asking, people watching this, when is it okay to have a really, really graphic description of abusive violence, and when do you think, no, I don't need that? Could we do this in a more subtle way, or yeah, without actually having to go into such detail? It's a dilemma for me, I would say. However, reading it all kind of more or less in one go was probably a good thing for me. Yeah, not like I wanted to get out of the way because it's a very well written book, but psychologically that was better. So, and then yesterday, I have to own up that we're meant to have another whole week to go on this Clarice Lispector read of Near to the Wild Heart, but I just finished the book. I just had to. It was 60 pages I was supposed to save to read over the week ahead, and I just sat down and read it because I wanted to. And that has made me reflect on, because I wanted to be able to have enough space in my head for the brothers Karamazov and these three totally weird brothers, and that conform to all your stereotypes of like Russian 19th century craziness. There's the soldier who gets into debt and gambles and womanizes, and there's the slightly sinister intellectual one, and the one that wants to become a monk and is staying with, this kind of all spiritual, and anyway, lovely stuff. Trying to keep that going in my head alongside Clarice Lispector's mad, extraordinary writing and influenced by Spinoza and jumping around in time and intent and bursts of streams of consciousness, and no, just head explode. So had to finish the Lispector, even though I wasn't meant to. And this has made me think what works and what doesn't work in terms of simultaneous reading for me. And I've realised poetry, I can run that alongside a novel. I can cope with having Milton and Dante on the go. That's okay. There's something about poetry, it's all about the actual lines, and although they're both poems that have a narrative thread, nevertheless, I can read a canto or a book or whatever and stop, and that's okay. And I can wait and pick it up again next time without losing the thread. And it's almost like you need to slow down to enjoy a book, that kind of long poem. It's good to be forced to do it slowly and let it kind of cogitate and brew in your head in between times. But novels for me, I think the truth is that whatever novel I'm reading is my other life. I have my real life and my life in whatever novel I'm reading. And I just can't do having 3 or 4 lives. Two lives is it's about enough for me. So I just need to not get myself in a place where I'm reading multiple novels. But I'm not beating myself up about it. It was like something that obviously does work for some people and doesn't work for others. And it made me think of a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, my son Alfred did a little takeover on this channel to do a video about the 8 different kinds of fun or pleasure. And I think and how they apply to reading. And I think one of the pleasures of reading for me is that kind of immersion, and to fully enjoy that immersion, it needs to really be with perhaps just one novel at a time. But we're all different, and we all and the kind of way the things that give us pleasure vary. So I would love to hear from if you're a monogamous or a polygamous novel, and why that's right for you. And have a great week, everybody.